is Catch a Break, the insider's guide to breaking into and navigating Hollywood, conceived by Catchlight Films. Whether you are looking to work in film or television or new media, it's all production and it's all entertainment. Maybe you are already in the business, but looking to make a change, shift your focus, explore a new area. This is for you too. In each episode, Catch a Break brings you a panel of top experts currently working in the business for conversations you won't hear anywhere else. And we'll provide you with bonus materials you can get your hands on and sink your teeth into. We'll give you samples of paperwork and forms you need to be familiar with, video tutorials, exclusive resources that will all help with your success. The presenting sponsor of this episode is the entertainment payroll company Extreme Reach. They have the most comprehensive suite of tools and services to support all areas of media and content creation, from tax incentive support to accounting software and payroll services. If you are producing content, call Extreme Reach. This episode is also sponsored by vetyourcrew.com, a global database of entertainment professionals geared toward collaboration and inclusion. Think of it as a global address book for crew, which also has an interactive calendar to show when you're available, and a robust search engine to help you find and hire exactly who you're looking for. Go to vetyourcrew.com to sign up. You can find us at catchabreakpodcast.com and all the podcast providers. I am your host, Julie Harris Walker. You may know me from the podcast The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood, or even the Kiss My Age show. But today, the focus is on you and how we can help you to catch a break. Welcome to Catch a Break and the episode on freelancing the smart way. As we have been uncovering, there are about 1 million ways to break into working in Hollywood. And if your dream is to work on set, in production, you are probably going to be working as a freelancer. So we are going to talk about what that means and then walk you through some tips on how to set up your life to work as a freelancer in a way that will set you up for success. There are a lot of factors, some of them lifestyle, many of them financial, and we hope that by the end of this, you will have more information than you had before and that you will have the tools to start making a plan for yourself to have a sustainable and fulfilling freelance life. So we're going to start today with Jeanette Volturno. Now you know Jeanette because she is the head of production at Blumhouse and she is a founder of Catchlight Films. Welcome back, Jeanette.
Thank you.
Why don't we start with what on earth does freelance mean?
Freelance means job to job. So you have a job that you book for a specific amount of time and that's it. It is not permanent, steady employment.
So it's not a big job necessarily in an office where you go and you're going to stay for 5 years.
Correct.
Now, if you're going to do that, you're only getting paid while you're working, right?
Correct.
So what are some things you need to think about? Like, are you taking a job and then going to Starbucks and then taking a job and then working at Starbucks? How does this work?
Well, I like to think of freelance as working 9 to 10 months out of the year. And you have to do your annual budget based on 12 months. So you take the income that you think that you're going to get out of 9 to 10 months and spread that over 12 months. And that's how you have to spend your Starbucks or your funny money, your play money while you go out and see your concerts or do all your other things, as if you're only working 9 to 10 months a year.
So if you get a job and you're making $2,000 a week, you can't think, woohoo, I'm making $2,000 a week every week of my life.
Correct. Otherwise you will be in deep doo-doo.
Let's avoid deep doo-doo. So can you talk a little bit about what is that like? Like, how do you look for jobs? What do you do in between? How do you not freak out every time a job ends?
The best advice that I like to give people who are starting off is to have a side gig. So you need, when you're first starting off, or even if you've been doing it for a little while, it's hard to make things as consistent as you would like them. So you need a little side gig on the side, and that can be anything from selling some of your own stuff, or maybe you are a really great organizer and you freelance organizing people's offices or houses or things like that. Maybe you freelance doing baking. Maybe you sew your own stuff. Maybe you're an electrician and you do some side work of electrician on the side. Maybe you're still a waitress or a waiter or anything like that you can pick up hours and drop hours as needed. You need something that's extremely flexible. flexible. That's the key to gapping stuff while you're freelancing, is to be able to have some sort of freelance thing on the side. I know one of my friends was a script reader, and she would make money doing that on the side while she was trying to become a full-time creative producer. So,
oh, that's super relevant.
yes. So if you can try to pick things that are in your field, it doesn't necessarily need to be in your field, but something that you can do that is flexible enough that you can pick it up and put it down as needed depending on when you get your jobs.
Like you could drive Uber.
Totally. Yes. Anything like that you can do that's flexible to just gap the finance as you're starting off. That's like the first thing that you need to think about while you're going freelance. And then when I get on a job, because we work such long hours in the industry, I like to try and put things on autopilot and also bulk up. So parlay with your parents' Costco card or a friend's Costco card and go and buy 2 months worth of cat food and dog food and toilet paper and laundry, whatever it is that you need in your house in order to sustain and keep things going with your roommates or whatever. Just get all of that stuff ahead of time so you don't have to think about it while you're shooting, and you can save money because you're buying it in bulk and you can split it with other people as well. And then also put any of your bills that you can on auto pay, so that it's really important not to let your credit fall while you're doing this. So we tend to get on these jobs and you can't really do things during the day.
You're not going to the bank.
No, you're not doing a lot of that stuff. There's no time, and you're working such odd hours that you're normally not around during business hours. So you got to try and automate that part of your life so that you can keep things moving smoothly.
So if you have a day off, you might want to sleep and not be running around to Costco and the grocery store and paying all your bills. And
correct, because you'll just exhaust yourself. You want to have a little bit of a life. You want to enjoy and get out and see friends and relax and whatever. Not do all of the other stuff. Yeah.
Now, what about traveling? Like, do you move to LA and work in LA all the time, or do you have to be just ready to go at a moment's notice?
Well, we're fortunate enough that the industry is very busy right now, and the amount of content that people want is not slowing down. So there is a sector that you can be in that will keep you in Los Angeles, which is generally television. And if you are happy playing in that world and you want to play in that world, then you can pretty much find something here right now.
Scripted television.
Scripted television, yeah. If you want to be in the features world, there is a very large chance that you could be traveling. And for that, you need to decide whether or not that's for you. And if it is, then you need to have all of your paperwork and shots and everything, because you might get a phone call and 2 days later find yourself someplace else.
In some other country.
Yes.
Now, what are the chances they're going to travel you if you're a production assistant?
We have traveled production assistants.
Really?
Yeah. Specifically to places, at least one or two of them, because you need people that understand how to lock a set down or run a base camp. We have done that to particular places that there are no available PAs.
Like a remote
place. Yeah.
What do you need to think about in terms of like how you set up your apartment? Or like if you are going to travel, do you need to get an apartment? Should you sublet? How should you set all that up?
As uncomfortable as it is, and as much as people want to be independent, when you're young, it is the best time to keep your overhead as low as you can possibly keep it, meaning have a lot of roommates. And don't accumulate a lot of stuff. You need to be able to move freely without having a lot of stuff in case you do decide that you are going to take a job for 9 months somewhere else and you want to sublet your sublet. But it's really about keeping your overhead as low as you possibly can, because while you're young, the more that you can save, the better off you'll be, because you'll be able to buy a house faster. You'll be able to have more in your retirement. It's a numbers game. And the earlier you start, the longer you have to accumulate in terms of your wealth growing, what you put into an account and how it grows. So
things I wish I knew in my 20s, because I didn't realize till my 30s, I should have spent my 20s traveling, working on production, banking all the money.
Correct.
That is a great way to get yourself set up.
I try and save the majority of my per diem. If I can save half of my per diem, I put that into an emergency fund. That's like one of the things that I do when I travel.
What is per diem?
Per diem is an allowance that you get per day for food. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when you're out on location, you get this. And usually they will will feed you lunch or dinner. And usually you're in a hotel, unless you're in long term, and the hotel has free breakfast. So if you can save the majority of your per diem, then that's like free cash that you can use towards an emergency fund, or I usually use it for an emergency fund.
It's a lot of extra money, and a lot of it is not taxed.
Yes.
It's a great thing.
It is.
What about, I know that you have been great at this and giving this advice. What are the little pieces that you can do to build yourself as a business in this business to make extra money that is related to the business?
We touched a little bit on it earlier. In 2008, when our industry sort of went to hell in a handbasket, I started picking up every financial magazine and newspaper and book that I could read and studying up on this. And I realized, you're only relevant for so long in this industry before the next group of kids come up and they are the hot, great workers that are in there. So I wanted to figure out how to have a safety net for myself. And I also felt very nervous and afraid that Social Security wasn't going to be around when I was older. And I'm part of the pension plan for the IA through the PGA. And I had that to look at, but I wasn't sure that I had enough else to really land when I retired. So I started going to different seminars, and I ended up buying a laundromat with my business partner, and it was a great investment and a learning curve for us, and it started me thinking about diversifying and buying other things that we can get into that bring in a extra income. So I started talking to my friends about, once you pay off your debt and once you have some 6 months of living and savings, that you should find something that is related. Obviously, a laundromat is not related to the industry that I'm in because I'm not a costume designer or anything like that. So it doesn't have to be totally related, but it can be. Find something that you can invest in that will not control 100% of your time, that you can hire somebody to manage, that you can feel good about, and is not soul sucking and depleting our resources and whatever it is that is going on in the world today, that you can really stand behind, and hopefully that'll start generating some income for you, and you can build that to have that be your part-time job. So you're not putting in your time, your sweat equity into something like you were early on when you were the Uber driver or doing any of the freelance stuff, organizing people's places, but you can have this company help gap some of the stuff for you.
Like maybe start buying equipment, camera equipment or grip equipment, or
yes, if you're
vehicles?
In those particular fields, and in certain areas like the East Coast, the Teamsters don't let you own equipment. So the West Coast they do. So there's various places that will or will not allow you to have certain things, and you have to be in particular unions or a particular level to have certain stuff. But you can always find out from the people that are around you what's the newest thing that people are looking for and what you could rent it for, and then you can figure out how to manage that and if it's a good investment.
Great. Okay, so I would love to bring Ari Gold into this conversation, and to let you know who Ari is. Ari Gold has been deeply fascinated by money since age 10 when she first started her business. After graduating with a degree in theater and economics from Northwestern University, she served as a costume supervisor for various Hollywood films, styling actors while also managing the budget for the entire wardrobe department. With 18 years of expertise in film, Ari now utilizes her financial knowledge, personal experience, and certifications as a money coach to help her clients shape and realize their financial goals. And the name of your business is the Money Stylist.
The Money Stylist.
Now, I'd love to ask everybody, just so everybody knows how many paths into this business there are. What was your very first job, and how did you get it?
My mom had sent me this book when I was graduating from college, and this is before the internet, called Hollywood 101. And all I knew is that I wanted to work in the industry. I didn't know how to get in. I didn't know what to do. So in that book, it sort of said, fax everybody and anybody you can your resume. So I did that. I got a fax machine, and I started faxing everybody my resume, and I managed to find production listings. So back then, the Hollywood Reporter would have production listings, what was crewing up, and I faxed my resume to a production that was gearing up in LA that was going to go to Hawaii. And I kind of, I played up the fact that I was from Hawaii, I'd be happy. So they brought me on as an intern here in Los Angeles, and I paid my way to go to Hawaii, but I had family there, so it wasn't, I could stay with family.
Be a local.
I could be a local. So they paid me, or they had me as an intern in LA, and then told me, if that worked out, they could put me on as a production assistant in Hawaii as if I worked as a local. So I went that route, and that was my first foray into costumes. I was the costume PA on a movie called Wind Talkers. And when we came back from Hawaii, same thing. I just started faxing everybody my resume. Any fax number I could get my hands on, I would fax a resume to. And I progressively just kept getting more jobs that way, and then expanding my pool of people that I knew and I worked with. And
just tell us a little bit about how you made the transition from being a stylist on set to doing financial coaching for people.
So I have always been interested in money and finance. Obviously, I studied economics as well as communications and theater in school. I've always been fascinated with the stock market. I've always had some sort of side business. My first business ever was I used to sell shells on the beach, or I'd have a lemonade stand, or there was always some way to make money. So even though I was, working in the industry, I never gave up those interests. I was always one hiatus. I was like, I don't have anything to do. I'm going to go get my real estate broker's license. So I did. Why not? Hey, which is actually kind of a good thing that I did, because the way that I got it, you can't get it anymore. I went straight from nothing to broker's license. Now you need to go salesperson, work your way up, get your broker's license. So I got that one hiatus, and I spent so much time researching stocks and options and bonds and different vehicles and vessels and so I bought my first house at 25.
In Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles.
That's amazing.
That's impressive.
And when I got my broker's license, I used that to buy 2 more. Sure. And so I've since sold them. So right now I have 2, and I'm kind of on the lookout for more. But so real estate is sort of my side thing. But I was working with, I had crews, all the crews that I worked with on different movies. And I would always, when a job was done, I would be like, okay, guys, see you in 2 months. I'm headed off to Turkey. I would go live in Istanbul for 6 weeks at a time, or I would go to Hawaii, or I would go, and I was never concerned about what my next job was. And I would have crew members just go, oh my God, we don't understand how you do the same work that we do.
What is your secret?
What is your secret? They would always ask, what is this secret that we're not aware of? And I said, there is no secret. I'm just very specific about where my money goes and what it does.
So you saw a need.
I saw a need, so I started helping people be like, there's no magic to it. It's just paying attention. And I started to work with my crew and be like, okay, this is what you do. This is how you budget. This is how you, and I had so many people that would come in and sit in my office, and I was giving so many lessons during the day, just to crew members. So it sort of morphed into when I was ready to kind of step away from the business and thinking, gosh, what skill set do I have? What am I gonna do if I walk away? And that sort of was like, well, why don't I teach what I know?
Sometimes it's obvious. What am I spending all day doing?
Yeah. So at that point, I decided, okay, well, let me go get some formal training on how to actually coach, so that it's not just my experiences. I can, bring in the experience of others, some more formal tools. So I took a hiatus, and I went and I got certified as a financial recovery coach, and brought that in, and I started my coaching practice.
Fantastic. So what is the advice that you have specifically for freelancers to set themselves up for financial security?
So for freelancers, the best thing about being a freelancer is that you have control over your own time. You are the master of your life, right? You don't have to, you can take time off, you can go on vacation. The detriment to that is that you're not getting 26 paychecks a year. You can't plan, okay, I know every week I get $1,000 and I can dole that out as needed. You don't know, because you might actually only get 20 paychecks or 15 paychecks a year, who knows? So with freelancers, you tend to get a bigger sum of money, and then it's a dry spell for a while, and and then you get another influx of cash, and then it's a dry spell. So for freelancers, most people, when they're budgeting, they think on a monthly level. They think, okay, every month I have to do this. This is what I need to do. Freelancers really need to sort of expand upon that. They need to think on a monthly, but also an annual level. And it's really important to think on an annual level, because there are expenses, and I call them periodic expenses. And there are those expenses that come up every 6 weeks, every 3 months, twice
Like
a
your
year,
car
once a year.
registration is not
Car
your
registration
monthly
is
match.
annual. Amazon Prime is annual. You know, if you pay your car insurance twice a year, you know, that's an expense. So all of those expenses that are part of your annual budget, they're not part of your monthly budget. And that's really what throws people off. So if you're planning monthly, you're not thinking about, oh, you know, once a year I get my car serviced at $1,000, or this year I'm going to need new tires on my car. So if you are thinking on an annual scale, you can include all of these expenses and build them into your monthly budget. And that said, if you take your annual and you go, okay, this is my annual expenses, this is what I need to make this year. You know, let's say my annual expenses, including those periodic things that come up, is $50,000. You go, okay, I need to make at least $50,000 to be fine. And you might, as a freelancer, make $50,000 in the first 3 months of the year and not make any money the rest of the year, waiting for that next either, you know, check to come in because you're waiting for somebody to pay it, or there's just no work. So you have to know that that $50,000 that comes in at the beginning of the year needs to carry you through the whole year. And if you don't think in terms of an annual budget, you're not going to realize that.
Right, you might think, woohoo!
And you'll be like, oh, I've got 50 grand. I'm just gonna buy a few things that I need because I've been putting it off, and you know, I'll go out to dinner a few times, not realizing that that has to carry you through the whole year. So especially with my clients who are freelancers, I teach this method of paying yourself a salary. So, and I do it myself personally. So November, December this year, I'm not working in the industry. I am simply working with my clients and I'm traveling. So what I do is I've done my annual budget. I know where I stand. I know that I'm good for the rest of the year. So I've been putting money into savings throughout the year to make sure that towards these last 2 months that I'm covered. All my expenses are covered. But I don't just pull money out of my savings as I need it. That's psychologically, that's scary because you just watch your savings deplete and you're like, oh my God, I'm depleting my savings. What am I doing? And you have this sort of negative connotation to taking money out of your savings. So what I do is I go, okay, my monthly expenses are X because I'm traveling and I'm not going to be working as much. I'm only bringing in Y. So the difference of that, so every 2 weeks I pay myself. I pay myself my normal salary. So I make a transfer at the beginning of the month, and then I wait till 2 weeks later in the month. And the reason I do it instead of one lump sum is that I might pick up a commercial, or I might pick up something that changes that second payment where I don't actually need to pay myself. But I really think it's important to pay yourself a salary and think of it as a freelancer. What you're doing is you're putting money away at the beginning so that you can pay yourself later.
It's so smart. And if you think of it as money being energy that's being transferred, if you're pulling every single bill out of savings, that's
it's psychologically,
so
you just watch. And what happens when you do it that way is you have this sort of nervous energy about, is my savings going to be enough? I don't know. Is it going to be enough? I'm watching it go down. And then what happens is that scarcity mentality comes in, right? Oh my God, I got to take the next job I get because I'm running out of money. And what if the next job that comes in is, you know, at a third of your normal rate? I see a lot of freelancers take it because they're in this mentality of it's not enough. I'm running out of money. But if you have control of your finances and you're paying yourself a salary and you look at your savings and you go, I have 4 months to pay myself a salary out of here before I even get close to feeling like there's scarcity. There's power there. Enjoy your vacation. Enjoy the meal out, knowing that you can completely afford it, that you're paid, that if a good job offer comes around, you can consider it. If if a job offer is low and you're like, no, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm fine. So
I think that being able to enjoy your time off is so elusive for so many freelancers because you are panicked about that next job. And since you talked about savings, let's dig into that a little bit because you don't have a 401k program as a freelancer.
No.
So how do you set yourself up for retirement?
So with my clients, I have them do a few different savings accounts. I really love, what I love about credit unions, some banks do it. I know not that I'm plugging any particular bank. I know Capital One does it. Pretty sure Bank of America does it, where you can have a savings account, but you can have sub-savings accounts underneath. I really like that model. And the reason I like that model is because I want my clients to have 3 different savings accounts. The first savings account, I like them named, right? So if you look at my banks, everything is named. Technically for freelancers, it depends on how you're paid in the industry. But there's 2 types of freelancers. There's freelancers who get a W-2, and there's freelancers who get a 1099.
Yes.
Now, in this next section, Ari refers a lot to W-2 employees versus 1099 employees. At its most basic, W-2 employees have taxes taken out of their checks, and 1099 employees do not. But rather than hijack this conversation, we will discuss the differences between a W-2 freelancer and a 1099 freelancer, along with to be or not to be a loan-out company versus an individual, with our payroll tax expert, Becky Harshberger, on the breakout episode that accompanies this episode. You can find it on our website, catchabreakpodcast.com. Now, back to Ari.
So for my freelancers who get a 1099, you need 4 savings accounts. Okay. And one of the things that is so important for the 1099 freelancers is immediately when you get a check to take 20% of that and stick it into a tax savings account. Immediately. Because you find that a lot of people will take that check and they'll be like, oh, I've got to pay my bills, I've got to do this, I've got to do that.
Don't worry about taxes next year.
Yeah, exactly. And then that rolls around and you owe $15,000 and you're scraping up to figure out how, and you're putting it on a payment plan with the IRS and getting interest, and that's stressful. It's not a good psychological place to be in. You're always chasing it. You're always chasing it. So, the people who are paid on a W-2, they don't get that money up front. It's taken off their paycheck before they even get to cash it. So it's really important for the 1099 people to do the same thing. They need to immediately put 20% aside and live off of that 80%, because that's really what your pay is. So for the 1099ers, you need to have a tax savings account, and it needs to be separate from any other savings account. So that way you focus on it, you're not touching it, you see that it's there. If you, for some reason, had to take from it, you know exactly what you're taking and what you need to put back. So that's the first one for the 1099 people. The second one is everybody should have a periodic savings account. And on my website, you can actually download, it's just an Excel spreadsheet that I put together, where you think about all of the periodic expenses that come up throughout the year. Whether it's this year I need a new washing machine, and I think it's gonna happen probably in July, or that's about when I wanna look into that. Or my car insurance, I pay it in March and August, or my Amazon comes up in December. A lot of my clients will put big birthdays where they, if they have a kid who, often they spend $500 on a birthday party, they'll put that for that month.
If it's bar mitzvah year.
A bar mitzvah year, exactly, because that is a big expense. And so you want to go through your life and think about all these expenses that are going to come up this year that are not just your electric bill and your gas bill and how much you spend on, gas every month, or how much you spend on groceries every month. And you want to see, okay, it totals, $6,000 a year, all these periodic expenses. Then you can look at that and go, okay, over the course of 12 months, that means I need to be putting aside in months that I don't have these expenses, about $500 a month into this periodic savings account, so that, let's say January, I have no periodic expenses. I can put that $500 in there. I can put another $500 in February. I can put another $500 in March. Well, April, my property taxes are due. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, now in this bank account, this periodic account, I have $1,500 to pay my property taxes. So I'm not going, oh my gosh, how much, I'm waiting for this paycheck from this job to come in so that my entire paycheck can go to property taxes. No, you've got the money put aside.
Now, is your vacation account in this account, or is that a separate account?
No. So these accounts are your necessities, right? Your taxes you have to pay, periodics you have to pay. You have to pay them, otherwise, your car gets repossessed, or you can't fix your car, you can't put new brakes on. You have a lot of other problems, exactly. So you've got your tax savings, your periodic savings, then comes what I like to call the freedom fund. This is what people refer to as the emergency fund. And I don't call it the emergency fund, because who wants an emergency? Like, nobody wants an emergency, right?
Oh, I like freedom fund.
Freedom fund.
Far, that's my favorite.
Freedom fund, and the reason I call it freedom fund is because that's the money you put in there to buy your freedom, right? So
is that your FU money?
That's your FU money. That is because there are those days where you just want to look at your employer and be like, you know what? F you.
I'm out.
Peace. And without that, you can't do that, right? So when you look at the Freedom Fund, it's the money that you put aside that gives you the freedom to make decisions. Whether it's a decision to take this job, whether it's a decision to not take this job, whether it's a decision to take 2 months off of work and enjoy your vacation and know that you don't have to take, the low budget thing that's offered to you. It's the freedom to know that if the shit hit the fan, you wouldn't be living in a cardboard box out on the street. And people go, if you talk to like normal financial experts, they're going to tell you, you need 6 to 8 months of living expenses. It's different for everybody. And with my freelance clients in the industry, depending on whether you're 1099 or W-2, if you're W-2, you get unemployment while you're, when you're not working. So that sort of reduces the amount you need in your Freedom Fund. But what I do is I tell them to think about your life. Think about how long you've ever gone unemployed. Like how long realistically have you ever gone where you have had no income? And, freelancers in LA, we've been really blessed in the past 15 years. I mean, if I wanted to, you could probably go maybe a month without work. It's really busy. But I remember back when there was the writer's strike, right? So when there was the writer's strike, people were out of work for 3 months. And before that, when the .com, September 11th, I remember it was about 3 to 4 months that you could go without work. So, I tell people that really look at their life and think about how long of a span have you ever been out of work without the prospect of any good work? Most people will say about 3 to 4 months. And then I ask them, on top of that, think about how long you would give yourself before you had to start making hard decisions like, okay, I am renting out my guest bedroom. Okay, I am gonna go move back with mom and dad. I am going to get rid of my car and Uber, or I'm going to take a job as an Uber driver. So think about how long you would give yourself before you had to start changing your current lifestyle. And some of my clients would say, you know what, I need a year. I wouldn't be comfortable making those decisions without it being a year. Some will say, you know what, after 6 months, I have to start making some decisions. So the combination of how much you need in a Freedom Fund is, between those two numbers. How long have you gone without work, and how long would you give yourself to make hard decisions? If you land at 6 months, you need to know what your periodic expenses are, as well as 6 months of living allowance.
What is that real?
What is that real? Like if you were paying yourself a salary every month, and your monthly budget includes those periodics, if you're doing it my way. So if you're doing it my way, your monthly budget includes those periodics. So you're covered for the year. And you go, okay, let's say, for example, I need $5,000 a month. I'm going to want to give myself 6 months before I have to start changing my life. So you need $30,000 in this Freedom Fund. So once that Freedom Fund hits that $30,000 mark, the rest of the money is fun money. And by fun money, I mean vacation money, investment money,
pool in the backyard
money. And it's so daunting at first to go, oh my God, I need $30,000.
Yeah, because that's a big number.
That's a big number.
How do you save that much?
But you don't need that today, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need it today. You don't need it. You want to start incrementally building it. And if you, let's say this year, you get 10,000 in there, it gets easier. It snowballs, right? So the hardest is at the beginning, but then it starts to grow. And then psychologically, people, once you see your savings get to a point where you personally go, dang, that's a significant amount of money. I've never had that much in savings before. All you want to do is put more money in it.
Right, because that's really fun.
Because and you're like, oh my God, look at how much money I have in my savings account. And it's really interesting to see clients, it's just, once it hits that level of, I've never saved this much in my life, you go, oh my gosh, forget going out to sushi an extra time this month. I'm going to put that $100 in that account. And so let's say, for example, you hit your $30,000 and then you decide, I'm taking 2 months off of work. Now you can actually afford a vacation because you're paying yourself a salary, right? So you take 2 months off of work and you deplete that savings by, let's say, 10 grand. Well, you go back to work and you start building that up again. Mm-hmm. So it hits its $30,000 cap. And so it's a constant cycle, right? And, once you get the habit going and once you get to that point, you'll find that all of a sudden you feel like you have more money than you've ever had, because now the money doesn't have to go to pay things. It's free. And
then there's no going back.
There's no going back. And so then you've got money, and you got money to start investing if that was your thing, if you wanted to start, investing in stocks. At that point, I personally teach my clients that it's really important to have that freedom fund built up before you start investing.
Like before you get an IRA?
Before you get an IRA. A Roth IRA is slightly different, but I will tell clients to prioritize their freedom fund before an IRA. And the reason being is because with a Roth, you can actually pull money out. So that's kind of why it can. So let's say.
Don't you want like sorry, I'm jumping.
Yeah.
Don't you want like the longevity of like if you start putting in that $5,000 a year when you're 20 years old, the accumulation of what it becomes by the time you retire is ridiculous because of the amount of time that you've been doing it.
Yes, but that's if you can afford it. But what happens if you're paying into your Roth and then you don't work for 4 months and you don't have the money to live off of? So you're pulling it out of that account and you're losing the accumulation anyway. So
freedom fund first.
Freedom fund first. If you get to a point, and that's the thing is if you get to a point where your freedom fund is building, then you can sort of come back and go through your budget and say, okay, I can afford $200 a month towards my Roth IRA. Under the age of 55, I think, if I do the math correctly, I think it's $456 a month is the max contribution to $5,500 a year for a Roth. And a Roth for anybody who's freelancing, that's your best bet to start. I like a Roth because you pay taxes on the money today. When you pull it out at retirement, it's tax-free.
And that's not actually a very high maximum, considering if you're in a corporate job, your max is like $17,000.
Yeah, your max is $17,000, and if you have a SEP IRA, so if you're continually going to be a 1099 employee, you can open a SEP IRA, but you can actually contribute up to like 30 grand into a SEP IRA. So with a Roth IRA, once you make $114,000 a year to 100 and I want to say 30-ish, your contribution amount declines, right? So under $114,000, you can contribute the full amount, and then as you get closer to the threshold, it sort of shaves it off. So if you're making under $100,000, the Roth is your bet. It doesn't help you tax-wise, but it will, the benefits when you retire are tenfold because you don't have to pay any taxes on it then. And right now, if you are freelance, you can take some of these deductions. Well, we'll see what happens with the new tax plan next year. There's a concept that is so important that people sort of grasp and teach their kids of delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is actually the key to wealth. And, in the 70s, Stanford did what they call the marshmallow experiment. Test. And so if somebody doesn't know what the marshmallow test is, basically researchers came in with some kids and into a room and said, here's a marshmallow. I have to go leave and do something else. If you don't eat this marshmallow now, when I come back, I'll bring you a second one. However, if you choose to and you eat it now, that's it. That's all you get. But they followed these kids, right? They followed these kids from, I think this test was in 72. So they followed these kids till today. The kids that ate the marshmallow tended to not reach their goals. They tended to, the kids who delayed their gratification to get 2 marshmallows tended to be in the more successful jobs, to be more financially, viable, to be the wealthier of the test subjects. And so how do we teach ourselves delayed gratification? Well, you need to know that sometimes, when you do something harder at the beginning, it pays off more later on, right? So
and live below your means.
You live below your means. It sucks. Let me tell you, living below your means sucks sometimes at the beginning. But let me tell you, at 40, I still live below my means and I have everything I want. And I'm on Saturday.
And not stressed.
I'm not stressed. And on Saturday, I'm leaving for a month in Hawaii, and then I'm going to Vietnam, and then I'm going to Cambodia, and then I'm come back for the holidays, and then I'll get a job in January.
That doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck. And let me tell you, when I remember being in my early 20s, and all my friends were in the industry as well, and I remember, them going out at night and, getting a lot of drinks, and I would just excuse myself. I would just say, I'm not going, or, and I'd be, because I was saving. I was a PA. I was making no money, but I was saving because I knew I needed a new car, and I knew this, so that at 25, when the opportunity, was there, I bought a house.
Which is better than I bought 3,000 drinks in the last 10 years.
Exactly. So yeah, it was a hard decision. It was a hard decision to sort of live below your means. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I want, but do you need it? No.
it pays off.
It pays off. It pays off. It might not pay off next year or the year after, but in the long run, it pays off.
But that's sort of like the dieting thing, right? So like you don't want to starve yourself completely.
No.
Like plan to have those little bits, those nights out with your friends every once in a while. Plan to treat yourself to a facial or whatever it is that you want in your budget so that you're planning accordingly, right?
Yes.
You're not in deprivation.
So one of the things, I don't actually call budgets. I call them spending plans. And there's a reason for that, because I'm planning to spend money. Like for me, in my spending plan, I build massages into my spending plan. I build dinners out into my spending plan. I build, and so I'll think about, okay, November, what is, like, where do I direct my money? I tell it what I'm spending it on versus me looking at the end of the month and going, God, where did it all go? So no, I go, okay, this month I really want a massage. I want a manicure, pedicure. I want a facial. But I also keep it within my monthly overall budget. I go, okay, if I have $5,000 a month, and here's rent, here's what I'm going to spend on gas, here's this. This is my discretionary money here. Where do I want this money to go? What am I going to get the highest value out of? Is it going out with friends for drinks? It might be. It might be that I haven't seen them in a long time and that's a very high value. Or it might be a new pair of shoes. That might be a very high value. But if I have to choose between the two, I would say maybe for me personally, going out with friends is a higher value than a new pair of shoes. But what we're seeing is a lot of people doing both. And then
do you ever get into like the relationship with money with people, like what their relationship is?
Yes.
And the core causes to that? Because as a freelancer, there's a lot of hangups that come with it.
Yes, there's a lot of panic that comes with freelancing. There's a lot of guilt that comes with freelancing, anxiety.
Worth.
Exactly.
Stuff is deep.
Yes, absolutely. So you have two ends of the spectrum in finance. You have debt consolidation and you have financial planners, right? These are your black and whites. This is the debt consolidation, and they're trying to keep you out of bankruptcy. They're trying to make sure that that all this credit card debt and everything that you've racked up gets paid without, tanking you. And then you have financial planners who, when you walk in, they're like, okay, how much money am I working with? And you're like, I don't have any money. What are you talking about? Aren't you going to help me figure out how to, I thought that's what you do. No, what they do, they're investment advisors, right?
Yeah.
So I do everything in the middle. I do the gray area. So I deal with the psychology of why we self-soothe by spending, right? So oftentimes if you're in a job that is very, very stressful, we'll find a way to self-soothe, whether it's, I've had clients where they self-soothe by spending time at the mall. It's sort of their way to check out and they're just buying stuff. Or, you get that quick, dopamine rush when you buy something. But what happens is that fades, and then at the end of the month, you're like, oh my God, I spent all my money on stuff I don't need.
Or even before that, what stops you from asking for your full rate?
When you know what you need financially to hit your goals, like if you've done an annual spending plan and you know what your monthly, needs are as well as your annual needs are, you are much more apt to ask for what you need. Because, let's say
that is really smart. Because you're not thinking, I'll figure it out with whatever.
No,
you know what? I need $150,000 to cover my nut.
Yeah, and you know what? If somebody doesn't want to offer you that, you can go, okay, is it worth it for me to take what they're offering? Or is it better for me to pass and see what comes up next? So if you know what you need, you can ask for what you need. And you're much more likely to stand in your confidence if you go, this is what I need. If I'm working for less than this, I'm going into debt to work for you.
Right.
It's not worth it.
I'm going to need a side job.
Yeah, exactly. And when you can go into a negotiation for your rate, knowing that, going, if I take this job with what you're offering me, I'm going to need to work on the weekends driving for Uber. So really, are you getting your full value out of me? No. Why don't you pay me what I'm worth so that you can have my full focus?
So I'm hearing it's very important to have some real honest clarity around all this stuff and leave none of it to magic Abraham Hicks.
No.
Hollywood thinking.
However, I will say that there is some of that, I call it my woo-woo spiritual, but you want some of that. You want to give yourself the permission to dream big, right? You want to so you know what your needs are. But you also want to think about what your wants are. Because if you go, okay, my needs are $5,000 a month. My wants are $7,000. So if you go into negotiation, you go, 7 is where I'd like to land, because that's my needs and my dream board, and they come at you at 4, you're gonna be like, heck no. But if they come at you at 6, if you go back and forth and you land at 6, you're gonna be very happy at 6. Yeah. So I think it's important to sort of, I do believe in manifesting. Really, the reason I believe in manifesting is that when you are spending the energy thinking about manifesting, you're spending the energy thinking. And that's the key. We don't think a lot, right? We're so like bombarded with our phones and our emails and the TV, and there's so much external noise that we don't spend a lot of time thinking. When you are manifesting, and I'm using my little air quotes here because it's whether you believe it or not, you're actually spending time thinking. You're spending time thinking about how you would get to that spot. So if you're manifesting your dream house, right? You're thinking about how you get there and what the steps are to get there. So manifesting is really another way of breaking it down into small steps and just spending time thinking about how you're going to get to what you want. So I do believe I'm like manifest away, but
okay, I'm glad we get to do both.
Yeah, you definitely get to do both. And the reason I love doing my annual spending plan, because it gives me the opportunity to think about what I want for the whole year. It's like most people go, oh, gotta do a budget for the whole year. And I get really excited in January. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do this year? Like, what do I need to just cover like my normal life, but what do I want to do this year? And so what extra amount of money? Okay, and how am I going to get that extra money? Am I going to, make sure that I take on one extra job or one extra client, or I actually have an Etsy store? So, you were talking about side jobs. I have a hobby and I have an Etsy store.
What are you selling?
Because I love to sew and I want to keep up my sewing skills. I have a little store where I do matching men's and babies dress shirts. And little girls' dresses. So like daddy and kid matching sets. And it's my hobby, and it's just a little supplement, but it pays for a vacation every year. So I think, and so it's just sort of those elements of what am I going to do to bring in that extra money so that I can accomplish these other things that I want to add on to my year. Like, what does the year hold? So,
okay, so if I'm a freelancer and I'm in the union, so I also have a pension happening, does that replace something else, some other savings plan, or is that in addition? How should I look at that?
So, number 1, you can't touch your pension until you retire. Number 2, if you are starting out in this business, you're 25 years old and you're probably going to retire around 67 if it stays, but every year the retirement age creeps up, and so let's say 70, right?
And when you're 20, that's not even a real thing.
When you're 20, that's like never gonna happen, right? As you get older, you're like, okay, I'm closer. But you don't know what's going to happen between today when you're contributing to your pension and the day that you actually file for retirement and start pulling your pension. So many things could happen, right? We hope that it's there. We want it to be there. But with my clients, what we do is we always plan conservatively, so that way, if worst case scenario happens, you're still completely fine. So that being said, the nice thing about being in the industry is that you're contributing to your pension, but you're not really contributing to your pension. The employers and the studios are contributing to the pension. So it's not coming out of your paycheck. So you hope it's there, but you need to plan on it not being there. The same with Social Security. You hope it's there. It comes out of your paycheck every month, but you never know where we will be in 20 years.
Can you apply these rules globally to any place around the world? Like all of the things that you're talking about, any person in any country who's starting off in a creative field can take this same application, because their governments and their pensions and everything are kind of like ours, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is you want to be completely self-sufficient, right? If you're completely self-sufficient when you go to retire, and then all of a sudden you're getting on top of it a monthly Social Security check, whether it's American Social Security, European Union Social Security, whatever, you're going to be living a fantastic life, right? So it's just extra money. It's fun money. It's I'm traveling around the world first class money. It's but if you plan on going, I'm plan on being self-sufficient for retirement, and that's me. I plan on being self-sufficient for retirement. So the way that I'm getting there is, yes, I know that I have a pension. I know that I have Social Security, and I just because I'm a financial person, I look at it every 6 months and go, okay, this is where it is. But am I planning on that as retirement income? Absolutely not. Not at all. So what I do is that I make sure that I have investment vehicles. Me personally, it's real estate as well as investments, stocks and mutual funds and that kind of thing. So that's the way that that's my retirement.
So what happens if you have somebody who has been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years and they haven't done any of this stuff and they don't have any savings? Where do you advise them to start out? Like, start
now. I mean, you can't go back in time, right? We can't, as much as I wish we could, we can't rewind and change decisions we've made in the past. So, instead of judging yourself for, oh my God, I should have done this. Why didn't I do this? I'm screwed. I'm just not going to do anything. Which is a lot of people, when they get to me, they're like, there's nothing I can do. Why bother?
They're counting the money you missed.
Exactly. So it's never why bother, right? So if you start today taking the first small step, before you know it, all of a sudden your financial life has changed. And yes, you might not have the $3 million at, age 62 that you would have liked, but you're one step closer, right? So maybe instead of working till 62, you're working till 67. So you'll make adjustments. But if you haven't started, start today. If your doctor tells you you've got heart issues and you've been eating, terribly the last 30 years, you don't go, well, I guess I'm just screwed. I'm going to die. No, you go, okay, tomorrow I eat a salad, and you don't have to change you're not going to, number one, you're not going to, and you don't have to change everything overnight. It's taking small steps and turning them into habits. That's the thing, is if you do it sporadically, it doesn't stick. So if you decide you're going to take control of your finances and you want to start, my biggest thing is tracking your spending. So with my clients, we use a software. I'm not connected to this software other than I know the software developer, and will email them when I have issues and I'm like, you need to fix this, or suggestions or whatnot. But I personally use with my clients a software called Money Online. And the reason I like it is because it gives you the ability, a lot of budgeting software or like Quicken is very like left, right, numbers. Whereas MoneyMinder Online is a little more holistic. It gives you the ability not only to plan monthly, but it gives you the ability to plan. And then it has another column for where you go, oh, I overspent or I underspent. So it gives you an adjustment column. So you can kind of see your habits and see where you're like, oh, I keep putting in $150 a month for gas, but I'm spending $250. That's a big difference.
What I think
and especially people like
does it automatically connect with your accounts? Does it fill in?
It doesn't connect to connect to your accounts. It's not like Mint. And the reason I don't like things that connect with all this cyber stuff, I don't like things connecting to my accounts without me connecting them. So what it does is you go to your account, you download the transactions, and then you upload it into there. So it's completely.
So you got to spend a little time.
You have to spend a little time, but it's the thing with Mint is why when clients come to me and they go, we use Mint, but we can't seem to get our act together. I'm like, because Mint is you're checked out. You don't have to do any work, right? So you're checked out. Mint does it for you, and then you're supposed to take that and go, oh, I'm over.
You got to put a little energy into it.
So
it's very different if you are entering by hand.
Yeah, and I personally still enter by hand.
I do too.
But I don't have to because I could just do the upload download. But I personally like to enter by hand. But you just download the Quicken file and upload it in there. But you have to categorize everything. So what that does is that connects your brain after the fact. So especially if you're using a credit card or, like if you're using a debit card, you feel it right away because it comes out of your bank account. But if you're using a credit card, you sort of postpone the pain, because you don't see it till the end of the month when the statement comes. But if you're tracking your spending, you go, oh, okay, I did spend $100 eating out the other night. I spent $50 on gas. I spent, and you're going through and you're seeing, okay, I have $200 left in discretionary spending and I have 10 days left in the month. You're going to make a different decision knowing how much you have left versus at the end of the month going, oh, I shouldn't have gone out. I shouldn't have paid for dinner with my friends the other night. I should have let everybody pay for their own. Or
then you're full of regrets.
There's a lot of regret. So and I personally, I do tracking once a week. I also find that when I'm really stressed out, tracking is very grounding because it kind of just reminds you, okay, you're fine. Like when you go to dinner, go do this. But when my clients are starting out, I advise them to do it every couple of days, every 3 days, because what you're doing is you're doing small steps to build a bigger habit, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to get in the habit of tracking. So if you do it every couple of days for a month or 2 years, now you've built this habit. So then doing it once a week, second nature, right?
And then you're more present with your spending as it's happening.
You're present.
Tomorrow you're writing that down.
Exactly. And you give yourself permission to make different decisions if you're making decisions in the moment. You can't go, like I said, you can't go back in time and change what you did. But if you're present, you can go, oh, okay, I'm going to pay for my dinner with my friends tomorrow because I have $200 left in discretionary spending.
I got it like that.
And tomorrow's the end of the month. I'm good. Everybody, sushi's on me. Right? So you can make those different decisions if you know where your money is. And one of the fun, I think it's fun, people hate it, things I do with clients is when they first come to me, what I'll do is I'll say, how much do you think you spend? Food's a hot area for a lot of entertainment people because you work so many hours that you don't. Cooking is hard. It's difficult. And, when I'm working with clients, if I was a normal financial coach, I'd be like, you need to get groceries and make your food and cut costs. But I understand the industry. A lot of the time that's not possible. So what I'll do with the clients is I'll say, how much do you think you spend on food in any given month? And I'm going to tell you right now, 99% of the time, they spend 200% more than they think on food. Like they'll say, oh, I think I spend about $600. And when we look at the numbers early on in their sessions with me, it'll be closer to $1,800.
That seems right.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other one that gets me is I spend more on my kids than I ever planned for because I'm like, oh, there's that school thing. Oh, and there's that school thing. Oh, and they need something else. Oh my God, they're growing like weeds. Like it's that stuff that catches me in my budget because I'm like, whoa.
Oh, they grew out of their shoes. Oh, yeah. We have a dress for this event.
Yeah. And so with my clients that have kids, a lot of times with their periodic expenses, we'll stick summer camp in. And because we know summer camp, you could be working, but your kids are off for the summer.
Summers are expensive.
Summers are very expensive.
And sick days when you need someone to watch them.
Childcare is expensive.
Yeah. Oof.
So
it's expensive to work.
Yeah. And so that could be something that you build into your periodics where you go, okay, looking back in the past, I've needed, childcare average about 6 days. So you can go, okay, I'm putting in my periodic expenses every 3 months, a sick day or whatnot. And let's say you don't need it. It doesn't matter. You've got this savings account that when you do need it, the money's there. So you're not trying to let's say it's May, right? And that's when all the TV shows end and everyone's going on hiatus. Maybe you get 2 paychecks that month and then there's Memorial Day. So it's a long month, number one. And that's when all the shows are ending. And that's when the kids start going on summer break. May can be a very stressful, January and May are very stressful months for freelancers. But if you have that money sitting aside for summer camp and for extra childcare in that periodic savings account, because throughout the year you've been putting, $500 a month in that account, you just write the check and you move on. And no stress. You just write the check. It's, for me, property taxes in LA, if anybody has a house, is
ridiculous.
Expensive. But, twice a year I write the check and I don't even blink because it's not coming out of my freedom fund. So I'm not seeing a big ding to my freedom fund. It's not coming out of my normal checking account. So I'm not panicking there. It's been put aside throughout the year. I just write the check and move on.
I love that there's all these ways to reduce the stress around the money. I think that provides such peace. And we could talk to you all day long, but I think we need to leave people wanting a little more. So we like to do what we call the martini shot, which is the last shot of the day. So for both of you, what do you think is the key takeaway? If someone took in one piece of information from this episode, what would be the thing you want them to hold on to?
For me, it's periodic expenses. So if you are only going to change one thing in your finances right now, I would say put together a periodic expenses chart, see how much these expenses are throughout the year, and start putting aside money in a periodic savings account every month for these expenses. That will change your life significantly and get you going in the right direction.
That is great advice.
For me, it's prioritize what you want and the life that you want to live and to keep your expenses as low as you can.
Great. Thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
This has been Catch a Break, the insider's guide to breaking into and navigating Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank our panelists, Ari Gold and Jeanette Volturno. And special thanks to our intern, Akiva Nemetsky, and our consultant, Lee Schneider of Red Cup Studios. Thanks also to Audio Department, who generously provided the recording equipment, and Jean Milanofi, who designed our logo. And a big thank you to Andrew Jocelyn, who created our theme song, Mantra for a Struggling Artist, and any additional music you hear throughout. Catch a Break is produced by Jeanette Volturno, Jessica Milanofi, Marcy Brown, Rick Osako, Shirley Davis, and me, Julie Harris-Walker. Now be sure to grab our next episode where we do a deep dive with Becky Harshberger, who's the head of payroll tax at Entertainment Partners. She's going to give us all the information between being a loan out, being an employee, being an independent contractor, and everything that entails. It is a must listen. Go grab that episode next. You can find us at catchabreakpodcast.com, and that is also where you can go to download the bonus materials. Join our mailing list so you don't miss an episode or other programs. And we want to hear from you. So reach out through the website. Again, that's catchabreakpodcast.com. And also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and we hope this helps you to catch a break.